Do you want to talk about your appeal a bit? How that went for you?
Yeah. I'll have to avoid saying, obviously, my name here, my full name. But I was just saying. I mean, it's like, for example, they've, yeah. I mean, they've seen what I've written as why I felt I needed to appeal. So, such as, there's a part here where Mr. Blah has also based his appeal on the fact that he did not recall giving his consent to be examined and that his attendance was due to feeling under threat and duress. So they got that. But then, it's because it's being numbered, so it's like 1 to 15 or something like that.
How did you feel you were treated by the appeal panel?
Well, that's just it. I didn't attend the appeal panel. I just wasn't able to.
Yeah, I remember.
I wasn't, mentally really prepared to do it.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, now, at the time I didn't, but now if I was going through it, maybe I would, but because I kind of feel more comfortable with you guys around me, yeah? I felt quite alone. I felt really alone at the time. And I also had people influencing me to not go, let's just say that. Yes.
If you can appeal, then, of course, appeal, but I think I said before, sometimes if you're having a difficult time or there's stuff going on in your life that's having an impact on you, the last thing you want to do is put yourself through something like this. It really is, it's not.
Well, listen to this. This is an interesting statement on this. It says, talk about putting, giving somebody 2 titles at the same time. Ready? It said that the healthcare professional, I'd say that I would say that's 1 title. Would you? A healthcare professional? Or a subtitle? Or whatever?
Weird.
Yeah. Assessing Mr. Blah. Oh, I'm Blah.
Yeah, Blah.
Right, okay. So the healthcare professional assessing Mr. Blah is an approved disability analyst.
What does that actually mean?
That's how they're being described.
Mm.
Approved by who? That would be interesting. ATOS? How can ATOS bloody approve anything? Are they being approved by the medical association? Because I would assume that would be the only association that could approve anybody's ability to be of any kind of have any kind of medical qualification, wouldn't you? It'd be interesting. See, they don't state they don't go into detail exactly what they're on about. It says the fact that the healthcare professional does not appear to specialise. Because I said, what did I say? I said, Mr. Blah. Mr. Blah has based his appeal on the fact that the questions asked of him were irrelevant to his condition, which I kind of felt they were. He has also stated that the medical nurse did not provide relevant experience or qualifications in depression or psychology. Sorry, and I'll just continue on from there. Let's see if I can find it again. It says the fact that the healthcare professional does not appear to specialise in Mr. Blah's particular medical condition does not suggest that his capabilities have been incorrectly assessed.
Well, that's like saying it's okay to get a car mechanic to paint your fingernails.
Yeah. What do you think, Nick?
I was trying to count how many negatives there were in that sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't make it. It kind of. I think it's almost as if it's been written just to confuse the hell out of you. I mean, these are the statutes. Well, this is the statutes that they apparently based their decision on. Welfare Reform Act 2007, right?
Yeah.
Schedule 4, paragraphs 1, 7, 11, whatever. Employment and support allowance, transitional provisions, housing benefit and council tax benefit. I imagine these are just the regulations of the subcategory, blah, 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 right? And then that's what it's mainly based upon, I think. But the Welfare Reform Act, Section 8, employment and support allowance, transitional provisions, again, different regulations. Employment support allowance, regulations, blah, blah, 25, and it just goes on. But they're basically looking at the Welfare Reform Act to make their appeal decision. Because this was done by, well, it was signed off by a magistrate. I think, no, it's actually signed off by, who was it? I think it was actually a judge. He does give the guy's name somewhere. Oh, God, I don't know. Bloody paperwork.
That can be quite common, I think, now. I mean, they very rarely have a single person on it. It's usually, they tend to have a legal person and a medical person. You know, quite often they'll have a third person, sometimes a lay advisor or chairing it to keep it in order.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've been to appeal too, haven't you, Nick?
I've been through so much fun with ATOS. I think, my last one, I had an appeal, and they were actually quite nice guys. I think by the time I got there, I think I went in ready for war, and I found out two very amenable, sociable guys who actually broke it down, and it was almost the feeling of, I think they'd been through enough appeals to realise the mess that was being made at the medicals. And just from hitting a couple of points, I think we already covered this in one of the last recordings, just on simple little things of how a turn of phrase can make such a difference of, what you may think of as a chair in terms of the question has a totally different legal definition, which the doctor may not realise, and the computer is pushing him to give that definition, and he doesn't realise. And when it hits the decision maker, there's so many elements involved that it's almost inevitable they're going to make mistakes, the way it's put together so haphazardly. And I look now at, because of the changes, I was used to the incapacity benefit rules. Now ESA's come in and they have really moved the goalposts. I think, like, before it was a case of could you walk 50 metres. Now the question is, can you mobilise 50 metres? And if you're in a wheelchair, it means, can you move your wheelchair 50 metres? Can you walk on the crutches you've been given 50 metres?
Can you do anything at all? Because if you can, you will have to work. Even if it's,
Yeah, they see you, they kind of see you, like I said, fit for work. Doesn't matter, it doesn't say what work they're talking about. It doesn't even define the word work. What do they mean by work? What are they talking about? I mean, I've got a piece of paper here. When they initially asked you to come and join the assessment, come and have the assessment, the office that this is coming from is a Bristol office, and the address is Bristol, ATOS Healthcare. This is an interesting one. Government buildings. Right? And then it's obviously just gives the area and the city, but government buildings, and this is coming directly from what they call medical services provided on behalf of the DWP. And it says we've been asked by the department for DWP to carry out a medical assessment in relation to your claim. And of course it goes on to say, if you fail to attend, your benefit may be affected, blah blah blah. So I used to sit there thinking, wow, is this coming from the DDP or is this actually coming from ATOS? And is ATOS Healthcare actually part of the building in Bristol that the government resides, as in the DWP resides? I was trying to work that out.
I think
so
they are.
ATOS actually have its own department within those government buildings, because it says government buildings. Sorry, Nick. Carol.
No, I think they're sharing all the same facilities. I've seen it with the we had a medical centre, what they called co-located. We had civil service. We had the civil service DWP people, and then off in a little corner behind its own door was the medical centre, and then behind another door in another corner was the building management people, which was another company that actually owned the building itself.
Yeah. Yeah, because the government rents those buildings, doesn't it? He rents all those buildings that DWP set up in.
We actually had it. I think they had another great fun company, if anyone wants to start looking at it. It's called Trillium. And they actually
God, yeah, Trillium.
Now, they actually own most of the job centres. I know Neo, coming from the same area as me, I'm not sure if you heard, because I used to have a few drinks with some of our union reps, and I found out a heck of a lot. But I think for most of the Southwest, there was a very nice, quiet deal done, and a great many of the job centres through the whole Southwest, and I mean from here in Dorset right to Cornwall up to Bristol, they were sold off as a job lot. Now, without any comments on property prices, this was about 10 years ago. They were actually sold and ownership transferred, and I think the agreed sum was worked out as £150,000 per job centre.
Wow.
All behind closed doors, huh?
Yeah, for prime sort of retail-based high street, or just off high street sites.
Mm.
Laughing.
Someone made a very good deal there.
Yeah, but I recognise that name, that Trillium name. Yeah, I kind of wondered. I never kind of heard them. It was kind of like a fleeting company name in the office now and again, and then it kind of dwindled away. I don't know if they're still around.
You mean Trillium?
Yeah, Trillium. Yeah.
No, Trillium are very, very much there. Trillium control the actual building management. The infrastructure is what they do. They are they're not in the public eye, not the same as ATOS is, but ATOS have been around a heck of a long time. And
did Trillium used to be? I think. Do you know another company that might have been under Trillium called Hayden?
That's the fellas, yeah. Hayden Facilities Management.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, because they used to deal with the postal services as well within the buildings.
That's the guys.
Mm.
Yeah.
But what's the Group 4 got to do with it? Was Group 4 a completely separate part of them, or somebody else, or are they still under Trillium, or are they like sub-company?
I think Group 4 were just hired in for the muscle.
Oh, yeah, that was because of the new job centres, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think Trillium still had their own sort of security. Didn't they have their own version of security sometimes?
There were some people transferred to them. We actually had we had a nice guy. He was, 5'2", and he would actually work outside all the glass screens in what was one of the scariest environments I've ever seen. He would actually sit with the customers. We're talking about people with serious drug alcohol problems. Right. But he was old-style civil service. He was not part of Group 4, and he was one of the last of what they called a steward. He was not a security guard, and he still had all the civil service entitlements. He was in a different class.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's hard to tell. I mean, even if I go back now, the names move around a lot. I know ATOS from way back when. They've been through, 3-4 name changes as far as I can tell, just in the time I've known about them.
Yeah.
What was, that guy's question this morning that we were, the guy who's going to have the operation within sort of 5 weeks after the assessment is due. I know you said you found some info on the forum, Nick. Was that useful?
The main response was we could really do with some more background information. And they said, generally search through for anything old. They said do a search on the word surgery, which didn't help because I kept getting like GP surgery and MP surgeries.
Yeah.
But again, quite a distinct lack of info. I mean, my main idea was, all right, if you ask for the recording, you might hold them back for a week or so. You may be able to look at the disabled access issue and push them to a home visit. But from what I'm seeing, you actually have to have your doctor to send in medical evidence to support your request for a home visit these days. So I'm not sure how that works anymore. Other than that, I mean, without knowing the circumstances, it may even be in this guy's interest to actually have the medical now And if he does have the surgery and is out again for another time, it might give him the option to claim because it's different circumstances.
Yeah. But it might be worth getting in touch with him then and having a chat with him about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, unfortunately, I would have loved to have given him a definitive answer and say, this is the section of their manuals, and you can look out for yourself and, obviously decide what we're thinking. I think we're going to have to be a bit more circumspect and say, well, we have some various ideas. We won't really know how good these are going to work for you. I think the only thing I'm certainly getting is they're saying, and almost every advice site is saying this, you should under no circumstances go on your own unless you have no option. Always go accompanied. I think they're showing, the failure rate with ATOS is so poor, they're saying, I think you've got if you go to a tribunal by yourself, you have a 50% chance of winning just going alone.
Yeah.
But if you take a good advisor with you who knows their stuff, your odds can actually increase up to about 90% just on the general figures.
Yeah. And prepare.
Wish I knew that then.
The one thing I would stress, if anyone out here is listening, and I think I've already mentioned this, I have found a site, and I've spent about a week just wading through stories of tragedy, suicide, and so much nasty stuff. And then I have found a site here which is called The Full Facts. Now, I will put the link up because it's not a direct, simple link. I think these are one of the people that ATOS have actually gone after online, because they've also been trying to close down their bad online publicity by having people's websites pulled. But this website, whoever the person is who set this up and runs this, they really know their stuff. They've broken down almost every element of how all this goes together. They go through all the details of how to prepare for a medical, how to actually break down all the different, what they call the descriptors of each element of how your disability works. And I think the word they talk about is functionability, which I think is the new ATOS term for, are you capable of doing the job? They've put me wise to the fact of, even when you have the pre-chat to the doctor and they want to know what your social life is, they will say to you, do you watch EastEnders? Now, a lot of people would think that's quite an innocuous question and they'd probably be quite happy to answer it. But if you answer yes, they are marking down, this person is capable of sitting and watching a TV programme for 30 minutes. Therefore, you are definitely not going to be uncomfortable sat at a desk for that amount of time.
I have to say as well, Nick, is that I listening to those kind of, what you just said, it makes me think, surely the solution is well, you think it would be a solution. It probably wouldn't, probably go against you, but I would think that it would be better off for you if you didn't even answer any of their questions at all. Because it doesn't matter how you answer, they're just going to spin it into making you look as if you're fine.
I've been down that road, Neil. I think when I was talking a week or so ago and I said about having this form, and I was going to use the wording in when we were looking over their contract agreement, ATOS DWP.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, right, this is an information form for the ATOS subcontractor, because in the contract they're just a little subcontracted agent for ATOS helping out. And one of my ideas of actually presenting this form was basically to get them so wound up they would refuse to continue. And I thought, okay, they cannot then. The main reason I know is they will stop your benefit for failing to attend. But if you turn up and then they don't complete the medical, they cannot claim that you haven't attended. But I've recently heard that when they've caught people taping, or if an argument's broken out midstream, they do kick you out, and then they go back to DWP and say, oh, they never attended the medical. They just literally flat out, if you don't finish the process, they are classing that as not attending.
Wow.
Oh, that's just really, really not on. That's bad. I mean, that is just really bad to do that.
I know it gobsmacks me, and but I've looked at these things of, I think one of the websites they cracked down on, and someone had said, I think some guy had set up his own blog site, and one of his captions was actually called ATOS Macked Fry, and I'm sure a lot of people will know where the connection is, and I know Neo has said there is a Siemens connection, and I think they connect back to gas chambers. And there's lots of very, very strange links floating about in here. For anyone who's involved in conspiracy theories, I think they would have a ball investigating the links between ATOS and so many other things. But I am really getting to a point of I can't see a solid solution strategy coming through. And my only gut feeling at the moment is basically just go in and literally throw as much as you can at them. Make it as difficult as possible, and then try and, obviously try and push them into corners, make them slip up, and then try and maximise each thing. And, basically go to appeal and say, well, they didn't do anything to their standards.
Yeah. I remember at my assessment that this so-called nurse, it was almost as if she was trying to sort of trick me in some way. I was kind of always, because she kept on saying, when I first entered, I sat down, because there was two chairs, and I sat down in one, and she said, why don't you sit down in that chair? I said, I'm comfortable here, thank you. But she kept on pushing it. She said, well, you could have sat down in that chair. Well, I'm comfortable here. And then there was a moment where she said, come closer, come closer. Come close, and I'm like, I'm thinking I'm close enough. I'm thinking I'm close enough. You can see. I'm thinking she can see me, she can hear me, but she keeps pushing me to move my chair more forward, a little bit closer to her. And I said, I'm fine. You see, it just seemed really weird. There was there was a trick going on there. Yeah.
I think the majority of what they're doing is, I think there's a lot of tricks. And a lot of things happening. I'm not quite sure what, I don't even understand some of the tactics they're doing. I mean, only person I know in recent history was a guy I had to help he'd been virtually living on the streets for a couple of years because he was too afraid to deal with officials. And I actually sat down and did the paperwork with him. Now, I know he actually explained to me he went into the medical. And I think this was before they would come and meet you and bring you in. And they just said, the doctor's down there. And he said he literally opened the door about 6 to 8 inches. And he's quite a slim guy and literally almost slid through the door with his back. And he kept his back to the wall. And the doctor looked extremely concerned. He said, oh, do come in and don't be nervous. He said, I'm sorry, I'm just absolutely terrified. And I think the guy he has a genuine terror of officialdom, of medical people. I don't know about all the history. And, admittedly this was a couple of years back, but he sailed the exam.
Larry, did you see that link I sent Nick yesterday? Did you get to see that? About, there's a Guardian news article, and the ATOS were getting their doctors to sign the Official Secrets Act. Did you hear about that?
I did see it, and I couldn't believe it, and I read it again today. It was the Ministry of Defence are the only people that should be signing the Official Secrets Act, apart from MI6 kind of people and GCHQ. So why are they getting employees to sign the Official Secrets Act?
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is that where does ATOS get the authority from to get their employees to sign such a thing?
Well, doesn't it say in that? I mean, it says in that article that it's it's their partnership, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, private-public partnerships. There you go.
Yeah,
that was a shocker for me as well. That was kind of a hidden article as well. It took me a while to find that. It just kind of came out of the blue in a search engine list.
Well, getting a doctor to sign something like that is taking away his right to say anything at all.
Yeah, speak the truth that he feels is the truth.
So something that could be helpful to, whistleblowing. They're just trying to cut every avenue, aren't they?
It looks like it, doesn't it?
I just think the whole thing is about. I'm not even sure what it is about, whether it is just a cost-cutting exercise or whether they do want to get rid of, people. I actually do think they're trying to drive people to suicide, because why else would you pick on sick people? It's somebody that I know, the person that our friend who committed suicide in August. I think I was telling you this, Nick. The son's 21, really depressed. Dad killed himself in August. Won't leave the house. Is causing, the mum, who's really depressed herself. He's been really rude, really arrogant. Very depressed, very aggressive, very temperamental. He's got Crohn's disease. He's been on ESA for a few months and got the work capability assessment letter and won't go because he knows he won't pass it. He thinks he'll be better off signing on. And sad but true, he will be, because he won't. They'll find him fit for work. And how terrible is that? I mean, this boy is 21 years old, and how many other people are in the same situation?
Yeah, I think it's going across the board. I'm seeing people on the quiet. Term ethnic cleansing is coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I believe to be as brutal as they're being, it's like, no, it's... I mean, some of the stuff that I've read on forums, some of the disabilities or illnesses that people have had and they're aware of, and yet still find them fit for work. Just, it's more than one, becoming many, becoming thousands, and just nobody seems to be taking any notice. And I know, if I remember rightly, I know this hasn't got anything to do with ATOS, but just again, because we're talking about, kick the sick and disabled, all the Remploy factories that are being shut, 28 factories with thousands of disabled employees are being closed. There's a big rally in Leicester Square on Friday to protest, but they're doing their consultations, but we all know what their consultations are like. It makes no difference. They've made up their mind. Those factories will close. All those disabled people who have got jobs there, who have been there for some of them have been there all their lives. Nothing, no job, nothing.
Yeah, this is terrible, man.
Do you think it is? Do you think it's a cost-cutting exercise? Do you think it's, I don't know, kill off some of the population? I know that sounds terrible.
If it was just about cost cutting, then even though people would say it would be real, political suicide, they might say. But if it was truly cost cutting, then they were truly desperate. Why go through all of this process where you're spending hundreds of millions of pounds a year on corporations to do this, when all you could have just done was just cut benefits?
I think it's also the way the disabled and sick people are portrayed in the press now. The stories that you hear about people claiming DLA and, when they say they can't walk and, they're filmed going, playing around the golf or, picking up big heavy things and shoving them in the back of their car. It's, they show stuff like that to make disabled people look really terrible, look really bad.
It's been going on for years, that. Yeah.
DLA is a scammer. If you're sick and you're claiming benefits, you're a scammer.
I know. I mean, look at the advertisements. I remember even when I used to watch TV, I remember there was always like a period throughout the year where the government would just show the benefit fraud ad, fraud, blah 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 blah. And I even remember there was even it's like a TV. I think there was a TV series about it. about people who were claiming benefits and working, and
that
it was always some guy who was like, oh yeah, this guy is self-employed and he earns 50,000 a year and he still claims benefits.
Yeah.
What a load of bollocks.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, it's just, I think this stuff is really, I mean, you know, I think this stuff is, I mean, I think it's just made, I go as far as to think that it's just created, it's just made up, it's bullshit. You know? 50, I mean, how could you, self-employed, 50 grand a year and you claim benefits? Nonsense. You wouldn't need to. Would you? You know? And there's like, so, you know, the same thing with, you know, with sickness and, you know, people who are ill and they're just being demonized as well. You know? I mean, what do I think? I think, I don't know, I mean, it's not nice to think about, you know, there's an agenda going on where they want to kill people, but it's not like they're doing the dirty deed, are they? They're just putting people in the position where they end up doing it themselves. So what's worse, you know?
Well, this is what I was saying earlier about accountability. You know, these people have to be accountable for their actions, their individual actions.
Well, they have to, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, but they need to be told. They're not being told that they're accountable. I don't think they're being told they're accountable.
Well, we have to tell them.
They need to be told.
Yeah, we need to tell them.
It's like when I was in...
I was actually wondering... Sorry about that. I was just wondering, because I know you were mentioning before about this thing of you've got ATOS medical people now signing Official Secrets Act, and I think Nero flagged that up a couple of days ago. There was one thing I was perhaps going to float with you that may be pertinent now. It was just as a side issue. I happened to stumble on a case of, if they're signing the Official Secrets Act, they are now classed as public servants. Let's go back to the Nolan report, and he gave 7 principles of what someone in public life should be standing by, and let's hold them to those, because they're quite tough.
Very interesting, Nick. I need to see those. Is there a link for that?
I think it's all over Google. If you look up Nolan report,
yeah.
I think it's like 7 standards for public life, which I can't even remember what Nolan was about. I think it was more MPs or something, wasn't it? But it's a case of if someone's in a position of public authority, there are certain
standards.
I think it's basically, you know, certain key words of like transparency, accountability, and all of these things. They're quite general and vague, but if they want to sign all these people into this, what looks to be a superstate idea where everyone's being co-opted, and you're getting this elite hierarchy of corporate and government people all joined together, it's a case of, whilst we have this chance, and I think we've got a very small window now, is every single turn is say, all right, you are now an accountable person. You know, you've signed up as part of the state. I want you to justify every single one of those points and give me evidence. We have to go into medicals and we have to justify ourselves. We have to go to tribunals and we have to prove, you know, we have to prove how sick we are in order to get a pitiful handout from the government for things that, you know, I make a joke, and I try and avoid it, but I mention it here now. I make a joke to my wife and I say, well, I may be dole scum, but I'm a better class of dole scum because at least I paid my stamp for what I'm getting. It's become quite hollow now, because ultimately it doesn't matter. And you know, I worked a long time. I may not have worked very hard. I may have had quite a few gaps in between, but I paid a heck of a lot of national insurance. And when you come down to it, I get no more entitlement. The fact I've worked for 20 years at a stretch at some points, when you come to claiming benefit, it's a case of, it doesn't matter that you've paid in for all that time. It's a case of, if you've paid in for 2 years, you get it. Same as anyone else. So you can work for 2 years, then you get the rewards of it. I'm now in a position where I've been out sick for quite a long time. And I'm seriously concerned. I think I'm almost certainly going to be put back into a situation of having to job search, where I've not had to do anything about seeking a job for so many years. what are the chances? You know, I'm going to give a CV to someone. If I'm not prepared to barefaced lie through my teeth and find ways to cover a 7-8 year gap, I don't stand much of a chance in the workplace with other people. You know, and that's quite daunting.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? And I work with quite a few people that had been, left work and were looking again for work after a stretch, and their confidence, just goes to the floor. Just incredible. It's just takes a bit of build up and, a bit of confidence in what they're doing, but they feel things have changed so much in the workplace. They might have, generally it was working with women on maternity leave, been off with, kids, for a couple of years in some case. And they go back to, the idea of going back to work and working with, updated computer systems which they had no idea about, or, new stuff that had gone on in the office that they weren't aware about. Just the whole thing of looking for a job was terrifying. I mean, I understand why you're worried about looking for a job, because it's a scary thing.
Well, I mean, I remember looking for work when I was made redundant, and I remember looking for work, and I knew because I was looking for work like 6 years before when I finally got that job at the DWP, so I kind of remembered how daunting it was. But this time round, it just feels even worse, because it's just like, for the years that I've been off, not in a job, and all that time I've also been either looking for work or I've been sick. But looking for work, there's only so much that you can take, because it really is a process of apply, no response, apply, no response, and you get that constantly until one lucky day you might get a response of, here's an interview. Then you got to have the interview. You'd have the interview, no job offer.
That's the worst.
You'll get that. There's not many people that I know of, unless they're a friend of a friend of a friend, family member who owns a business, they get offered work within, a few weeks to a month of losing a job or whatever. But if you're like just suddenly coming into it and you're just trying to apply, it's a fucking nightmare. It's a nightmare, and eventually you just give up. And you have every right to just give up, really, because mentally there's a point when you just can't take it anymore, because it's like a constant bang on the head.
Yeah,
every time you get turned down. Every time you get turned down. Yeah, I know, and you're not even applying for, like, you're just applying. Let's say you're just applying for a basic job, and the pay isn't that great, and you're still getting turned down with all the experience that you say you have in your lifetime or whatever years you've worked. You're still getting turned down, and the job centre keeps telling you you've got to just keep applying, just keep going. If you don't, we're gonna take away your money. It's all added pressure, it's all added stress, and all you really want to do is just be left the fuck alone to just do what you need to do. But they just don't even want to do that now. It's like when I was at when I went to see when I signed on Friday, and I saw my so-called advisor, and they don't even advise you of anything as far as I'm concerned. They just pressure you. And I just went through. I mean, that's why I just had my mental crash. Every time I have my signing on day, I dread it now. And I went in there, and I said, well, I went to see the DEA. They fucked up the appointment last week. I didn't miss it. I had turned up. They screwed it up. Nothing's been organised. Nothing's been set up. I'm now here signing on. You're trying to force me to do this. But I've got some issues. I've got some problems. It needs to be worked out. She's still trying to push it. And then eventually I just say to her, what was it? She said, what about those jobs that we gave you to apply for? And I said, oh, look, I made a mistake. Look, it was part-time. It was not enough hours, and also it wasn't going to pay me enough. Okay, I'll just make a note of that. And I said, well, why do you need to make a note? And she said, oh, well, it has to go to the decision maker. And I said, well, what do you mean? Well, and I mean, she was about to say it, and I kind of knew what she meant. And I said, well, "Is this to do with some kind of sanctioning?" Well, there may be a sanction. We just have to see. We just have to see if the decision maker thinks it's a good enough excuse.
Oh no.
You see, so and I basically said, "Look, I don't give you consent to do that." I said it, and I also said to her, "If anything happens to me, you're liable." Oh, I'm not taking any liability. Oh no. I'm not taking responsibility. No. She said, just like that.
Did you get?
But the thing is, I don't know what happened because I haven't. This was like almost a week ago, and I haven't received a letter or anything yet to say that I've been sanctioned. I can't guarantee that I haven't or have, but maybe what I said might have persuaded her to remove it. I don't know. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. I've got to see my disability advisor tomorrow. Is it Friday tomorrow?
Yeah, no, Thursday tomorrow.
Oh, I've got to see him on Friday. Okay, well, see him on Friday.
You know, sorry, can I just read this out to you? I read it to Nick yesterday, but it was just a post on a forum, and it's work program woes. I'll just read it as it's posted. So, right, just sounding off really. I have a client in his late 50s who has a very poor work history and has not worked for years. He's on JSA and over the years has come in every now and again with a sanction for not having made enough effort to find work. In the past I've managed to get these overturned, but since the introduction of the work programme last April, he must have been threatened with sanctions at least a dozen times. Now I have 5 sanction cases going to appeal and another one on the way. He's on his second 26-week sanction for failure to participate. He's just given up going to the appointments, leaving me with virtually no arguments for the appeals. There are no other benefits he can claim. I can't blame him for giving up, really. He has virtually no chance of getting a job, having tried everything in the past, and it seems wrong to spend so much time and resources hounding him to find work that doesn't exist. He will simply fall out of the benefit system and be left destitute. I'm sure there will be many others like this, in the long run costing the public purse a huge amount in general bureaucracy, appeal costs, increased ill health, crime and homelessness, etc. No doubt it would be more cost effective to pay the JSA and spend money on creating more job opportunities rather than pointless coercion to force people to find work that doesn't exist. But that is just my opinion. That's it, rant over. If anyone has any magic answers, I'd be pleased to hear them. I read that and I just thought, Jesus, how bad is this? Do you know what I mean? That's some guy on his second 26-week sanction. You know, I'm just unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably find that's quite common.
Well, yeah, it's going to become more and more common. So your experience in the job centre and how they're treating you it's just like you're not a person, are you?
Well, it's just that you can't. It's everything's just an excuse. You say, well, why can't you work less? 16 hours or less, or why can't you accept a minimum wage job?
You have to be so careful what you say, don't you? If you say, I don't, that doesn't pay enough, or it's not enough hours, or whatever you've said.
But the thing is, I mean, those excuses are not excuses really, but they're justified answers. They're really justified.
Well, they're reasons, aren't they?
They're justified reasons. Yeah, it doesn't pay me enough. I've got to live.
Mm.
I mean, let's just say if you have a family. I mean, for instance, and you kind of know how much it costs to run a home and pay bills, and everything's going up. Fucking hell.
And you've got to enjoy the job you do as well. You've got to want to.
Well, yeah, because put it this way. I'll be honest with you. If I ended up getting a job because I'm forced into it and I just apply for any old shit, I ain't gonna last.
Well, exactly.
Mentally, I'm not gonna last because you're
being pushed into something you don't want to do.
Well, yeah, because it's just slavery. I can only see it in that way, really. You're being forced into doing something you don't really want to do. I'm not saying that it's not. People say, "Well, you're just lazy." No, it's not laziness.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I'm not lazy. I'm terrified.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
I'm terrified of them making me go back to work and finding me a job.
If you've got to go somewhere for 8 hours a day, and usually, and probably even more, now, you want to make sure that if you're going to spend a good majority of your life at a place, you want to make sure that you're at least somewhat happy there.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we worked for the DSS for all those years, and we weren't happy by the end of it.
No, but it was you applied for that job and you were happy to get the job at the time, weren't you?
Well, when I got into it, when I got into the other side, you might say, in the DWP, I realised that it was, to me, I felt that I was beginning to serve. I felt like I was serving people. I was part of the process. People needed help. Because I never knew it existed as such. Especially social fund. I had no idea social fund existed. All I knew is that there was income support. I didn't know any of these other departments when I was so young. I didn't know shit, really. But when I got on the other side of the bench, and I saw all these things, I thought, wow, this is a mind opener here. But it also made me think as well, of how bad society must be if we even need these things. How fucked up it must all really be if we even need these things.
Yeah, if you break it down like that, you just go mental.
Yeah, I know, and I think over the years, I think you do end up mentally going under. So it takes its toll. It takes a long time, but I think it takes its toll. Because you're not just seeing people on the outside you're seeing their experiences with what they're writing and what you know is out there, but you're seeing all your colleagues and your staff. You're going to see them all going under, and their attitudes and the way they treat you and the way they treat others and each other. It's just, it becomes, it's hard to build a brick wall up around that constantly.
Yeah.
And survive. Because I mean, there were people there who were they were kind of like the sick people. They were always going off sick. And when I looked at what they did, I wasn't fucking surprised. I wasn't surprised that they were going ill. So, yeah. Any last words, anyone?
Well, so you're waiting to hear about this, whether or not they've applied a sanction to you?
Well, if they have. Because I gave her I wasn't rude to her. I was a little agitated.
See, this is the thing, keep calm. This was...
Well, yeah, I do, I know, try and be nice and calm and all of that, but,
you have to.
Sometimes, depending on who you have, they can get to you. So, I wasn't angry, I didn't shout or nothing like that. I was calm, but I was just a little stern. About what she did. And I said, you didn't have to do that. I really don't give my consent to you doing that. I bet she never heard that before. And when I said you're liable, it's like, oh, I'm not liable. No. But she never heard that before either. But I'm basically just telling her, look, you're responsible. Doesn't matter in the civil service, no matter how high or low you are, you're all making choices, right? You're all making choices in those departments.
Yeah,
so,
I just think you have to be careful how you approach them around that subject, because...
Well, when I see my DEA on Friday, I'm going to make another suggestion. I might actually ask him if he's able to change my advisor altogether, as in change my JSA advisor. And say, can I have a new advisor, please?
You can ask for a new advisor. You have to ask the manager.
Right, okay.
Is that right? I think that's what I was told. Do you know anything about that, Nick?
I'm not really certain how things work now. I know I've had the situation of my wife this morning. I'm quite relieved she's been... I think she had an early appointment today. She's been having appointments in the afternoon, suddenly flipped to the morning, and she spent most of the day. You can see the tension build.
Yeah.
She was very worried today because she had 5 of her good jobs, and I think we've covered about this, the thing of jobs and steps, but she said, I think I really need another one. And we looked at a few options of how we could actually work something on paper to look better, and she was very, very concerned, and she came out quite happy and said, I didn't get the normal girl, I happened to get this older lady who was very, very sympathetic, very laid back, wasn't really bothered about checking my paperwork through. And, I'm seeing all sorts of little things coming through. And the things she's picking up, she's feeding back to me. I'm picking up things off. I've got my brother-in-law talking to me. He's just come out of work now. Now he's spent his life, good 20-odd years in the building trade. Now, he's only ever been a labourer, and he's been very happy with that. He's never had to... He's got no family. He's still living at home with his dad. And he's been quite happy and been living quite well from it. He is now saying he's chasing minimum wage jobs in building, and they're saying that's the way it is, and he's starting to question, why am I, effectively the building trade is a very risky business. Lots of people are still dying from health and safety issues and just sheer accidents, and he is questioning, why am I doing this, taking risks, working with bosses who seem to want to cut corners with health and safety. I could go and stack shelves at the supermarket and get exactly the same back.
Yeah, that's so true, though.
I think Jack wants us to wind up now.
Okay, well, it's been great catching up with both of you, and, I've said before, it's so great to work with both of you.
This might be the best conversation we've had so far, actually.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you both.
Yeah, no problem.
I think it's just getting better as we're going on, and we seem to get into the stride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
Great. Yeah. Say again?
I was just saying, all right, boys, good night.
Yeah, good night to you, Ferry. Good night, Nick. Good night, Jack.
Good night to you both and everyone else out there listening.
Yeah.
And speak to you both soon. Okay, this has been Wellfair on tnsradio.ning.com talking to the Wellfair Allstars team. Also, big thanks to Scottish Sovereigns on the land.ning.com. If you want to contact us, you can contact us through our website, which is www.wellfair, as in wellfair.org.uk. Or you can email us on team@wellfair.org.uk. That's welfare, WELLFAIR. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Bye.